Hey everyone, this is Emilio Ramos with RedGraceMedia. And I wanted to talk today a little bit about 4th of July because for my personal 4th of July weekend, I have chosen not to celebrate the fireworks this year. As I reflect on the state of our country, the state of our nation, and what is going on, morally speaking, as you know, the decline of Western civilization as a whole, and I think about what 4th of July is supposed to symbolize and what 4th of July speaks of, I can't in good conscience find myself standing beneath the stars, looking up into the sky, and celebrating with the lights and the bright fireworks going off because we're living in different times. And precisely what are we celebrating when we choose to join in the festivities of the 4th of July weekend? What we're saying is that we are in a country in which we are free. But let me make it abundantly clear to us that we are no longer free if ever we were. Now, of course, America has never been and will never truly be a Christian country. We know that we seek a country that is to come, a higher country that is a heavenly home. But at the same time, there is no question that we have to grapple with the reality that Christian liberty and Christian freedom has been drastically undermined with the latest ruling of the Supreme Court regarding homosexual marriage, so-called. And I was really pondering what I would be doing on the 4th of July, and I'll get to that in a minute. But let me just tell you one of the reasons why I think it's virtually impossible for me in good conscience to sit as a citizen of this great country and lift up my eyes, as it were, to the heavens in celebration of a fireworks show with the national anthem of the Star-Spangled Banner going off in the background and pretending to be celebrating freedom when in fact we no longer, if we ever were, live in a free society. Now what we have is what can only be described as tyranny and what can only be described as radical oppression and radical suppression of Christian rights all over the nation. There's no question that now our rights are being very, very quickly maligned, and that we are no longer a majority in this country. We are no longer free to express our views in any way that we want. We are no longer given the right of conscience as Christians. And this is escalating at a scale that is virtually insane. A recent article by Breitbart illustrates exactly what I'm talking about. Breitbart recently pointed out in an article entitled "Hate Wins." Let me read you just a little bit of the gist of this article. This is by John Nolte on Breitbart. He says, Oregon State issues gag order against opposing gay marriage. In other words, what this article goes on to say is that Christian bakery owners were told that they were not allowed to speak publicly against the issue of homosexuality and gay marriage. In essence, they have to keep quiet. And the article is really, really perceptive in pointing out exactly how much this anti-Christian sentiment has not only creeped in, but now has reached a level of all-out, belligerent, blatant hostility towards the church. So he documents in 1995, he says the conversation was basically this: we don't want marriage, we just want civil unions. That changed in 2005 to something like this: our marriage won't affect your rights. And there was a time in which I'm sure people went along with that and they thought, okay, surely our rights will still remain intact, regardless of what the homosexual community does. Surely this will not affect our religious freedom as Christians. In 2014, we were told, as the article goes on to point out, that you had better bake the homosexual community their cake or else. It's the way that he puts it in the article. Bake me a cake or else became the conversation. In other words, it was no longer about equality. It was no longer about acceptance. It was no longer about tolerance. Now, in 2014, very quickly, it has escalated. The rhetoric has escalated to the point where it is do this or else. Or else what? Well, as the owners of this Christian bakery have found out very quickly, they are being told the else means a $135,000 fine. That's what the else means. And what's the next step? Well, here we are in 2015, homosexual marriage now legal across the country. And how has the opinion changed? This is how it's changed according to John Nolte's article. Your opinion against same-sex marriage is now illegal. So that's the escalation of the culture's conversation and rhetoric position, its posture on this issue. We are now, and we have now reached a level of such anti-Christian vitriol that even publicly speaking against the issue of homosexual marriage could get you in trouble if you are in the right or if you're caught in the wrong scenario, so to speak. But this again comes back to the issue for me of what am I doing on 4th of July? What will I be doing? What will you be doing on 4th of July? For me, I can tell you that I will not be celebrating the fireworks this year, but I will celebrate the gospel. And to show my solidarity with the gospel and not with a culture that is not living up to its own standards and its own stated morals and its own documents, founding documents. What I'm going to be doing this year is I'm going to be celebrating the gospel of Jesus Christ. So I will be not sitting in a park somewhere watching the fireworks, but I will be standing on a street corner heralding the gospel of Jesus Christ. I think that as a Christian who has discernment in what is going on all around us, as soft tyranny hardens, that doing more for the kingdom of God on 4th of July than for the fallen kingdoms of this world seems to me to be the only response that is sane. And so I am not binding anybody's conscience to what they want to do on the 4th of July. I just wanted to encourage us that it is time now, like never before, to obey God rather than man. And so I hope that in some way we will, this year as the church, we need to weep, we need to pray, we need to lament, we need to express our deep sorrow for a country that is dying quickly. And if this right can be taken away, that is the right of freedom, religious freedom, freedom of speech, the freedom of conscience, once that is taken away, every other law will follow very, very quickly after that. And so for me, it just doesn't feel right to pretend that we're truly living free. And if it were not just an issue of policy, but because it is an issue of the suppression, the downright discrimination, you want to talk about a contradiction in what has taken place in the moral conversation, the religious, the ethical conversation, the political conversation in this country. You want to talk about a contradiction in terms. What about anti-discrimination laws for Christians? When do Christians get the freedom to not be discriminated against in terms of our Christian conscience? Well, of course, there will be no Supreme Court ruling on that issue that is defending the conscience of Christian freedom. Now, even though the court's ruling on the Supreme Court stipulated certain what seemed to be, for the moment, protection clauses for freedom of speech, The gag order coming out of Oregon is just a quick reminder. It's just a quick indication of what is coming very quickly in mass, and that is the total and complete silence of the Christian church. So God bless you on this 4th of July. I pray that you would celebrate the cause of Christ more than you celebrate anything else.